Jeremy, we are live.
Awesome. Thank you, Adnan. Hello, audience. Thank you for joining us back in the second half of the second day of Angel Rising. I'd like to welcome you to our pitch session for the day and give a very, very warm welcome to our ventures who have joined us today and the Conscious Investment Fellows who have also joined us. I'm going to briefly talk you through the agenda and then I won't waste any more time. We can get straight to the pitches. So after these short welcome notes, we're going to hear from Red Sea Farms, we're going to hear from Pulse Active Stations, and we're also going to hear a pitch from Idama. Each startup will pitch for 5 minutes, followed by 10 minutes of questions from our Conscious Investor Fellowship Fellows. We then have 5 minutes for audience questions. As mentioned, please use the live wall chat function to pose your questions, and I will pose them to the entrepreneurs on your behalf. It gives me great pleasure to introduce our fellows, Dominique, Jassim, and Dr. Sultan, who have joined us for the last 6 weeks for a very high octane Conscious Investment Fellowship program. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce Simon Bryant of Red Sea Farms to turn his camera on and to share his screen.
Thanks, Jeremy, and everyone. I'm just going to share my screen 1 second. Jeremy, could you just confirm if you can see my screen and hear me okay?
Yes, good to go. Thank you, Simon.
Great. So as mentioned, I'm the CFO of Red Sea Farms. Before I dive in, just like to think about the last time you looked at the fresh fruit and vegetables on your plate and thought how much fresh water and energy had been used to grow them and how far they traveled to reach your fork. Now, we think about that all the time at Red Sea Farms. And actually, if a couple of stats to start us off, over 70% of fresh water globally is used for agriculture. And in the GCC region, that number is a lot higher. But 97% of all the water on Earth is salt water. We have 2 amazing founders at Red Sea Farms. And really, Red Sea Farms is the culmination of decades of their research in the field. They've both been in Saudi Arabia for the last 8 years. Professor Mark Tester is a world-leading plant scientist. Professor Ryan Neffers is a world-leading agriculture engineer. And they've come together with this technology that they developed in Saudi Arabia for the desert region. Now, what is that technology? We have 3 key elements. The first really in our engineering and technology stack is low energy saltwater evaporative cooling. We use the power of the sun to evaporate salt water, and we use that cool air to cool the greenhouse down. That's a patented system. Almost all desert greenhouses use fresh water at the moment. On top of that, we have a liquid desiccant cooling system. We chill that down using solar power at night, and we keep the greenhouse cool in the day. It's also patented. And we have a humidity recapture system, which helps those 2 systems work better together, and that's also patented. On top of that, we have an IR absorbing value-adding glass, or smart glass, which blocks heat coming in and allows more heat to escape without losing any light that comes into the greenhouse. What that really means is we can power our greenhouse with sunlight and salt water. On top of that, we have amazing plant science where we're growing crops within our hydroponic system, replacing some of the fresh water with salt water. That has a benefit of saving fresh water, but almost all the fresh water saving is from the cooling. What it does as well is actually create better tasting, more nutritious crops. Around all of this, we've developed a proprietary remote monitoring and control system. We have IoT sensors all over the greenhouse, which ping 16 million data points per 1,000 square meters of information back to our cloud-based system. That system gives us alerts. It's increasingly using machine learning to take control of the fans and the lights and so on, and making that more efficient. Now, how do we compare? These numbers, I was blown away when I first saw them. If you look at the average desert greenhouse, it uses 350 liters of fresh water to grow a kilo of tomatoes. If you go the other end and go high-tech, where you're using mechanically cooled greenhouses, they use 8 kilowatts of energy per kilo of tomatoes. Red Sea Farms is low on the fresh water. It's very low on the energy. It's much less expensive than the high-tech greenhouse, and our OPEX is obviously a lot less because we're using sunlight and salt water. And if you think about the desert and the year-round sun we have amazing growing conditions if you can just reduce the heat. It means our yields are as high as the highest tech greenhouse, and we think the quality is better. So our momentum, we already have tomatoes on sale in Jeddah, actually Jeddah, Riyadh, and Dammam. We actually sell a ton a week of produce to one of the biggest retailers in the UAE. We have 9 other organic crops launched. We actually have 35 other organic crops certified in our labs. And we have this defendable product of salt water, which means better taste and quality and shelf life. And how big is the market? Well, the GCC consumes 7 million metric tons of imported fruit and vegetables per year. That's flown over from all over the world. Well, one 10-hectare greenhouse will produce 3,500 metric tons per year of just tomatoes. So there's a huge amount of space to grow. But the benefits of just that 10 hectare, the impacts of that, we look at import substitution of 33 million over 5 years, but 150 jobs, and we're saving 3 million metric meters of cubic meters of water in those 5 years and 5 million kilowatt hours. So really big, sustainable and commercial benefits. Just to reiterate that, our primary inputs are salt water in the sun. We're way less fresh water, we're way less energy use. But we also have 0 air miles, so it's local, healthier food that's got 0 air miles and gives you complete food traceability through our Cortex system. And where do we want to go? Well, we want to play a key role in regional food security and the visions of the various countries. And we want to become a global leader in agri-tech. We think this is a truly sustainable way to do that. And that means in the near term, we're going to build more greenhouses across the GCC. We've already lined up a 10-hectare greenhouse, which we've signed funding for just north of Kaus. We've just signed an agreement to build another 10-hectare greenhouse in the UAE. We'll be doing more crops, so not just tomatoes and the 9 we have, but we have many crops in the pipeline and more automation. On top of that, as we look bigger, we're able to take some of this saltwater tolerant crops into open field, so salt damaged soils globally. We're also able to look at our technology as it applies to indoor livestock, so say poultry farming, where the saltwater cooling actually purifies the air, so prevents disease and can prevent disease transmission to humans, which is clearly a major focus at the moment. And we wanted to be able to globally export and expand across the region with this really game-changing technology, which has been developed here within the region. And that's us.
Thank you, Simon, for that very, very engaging pitch and an awesome solution there. I'd like to invite our fellows to ask some questions if they have any.
I'd like to start if this is possible. Simon, just to clarify, so you said that you use the salt water. However, we know that you need to dilute the salt water in order to be able to use it. So you use the cooling system to dilute?
So in our cooling system, we use what's called evaporative cooling. So we use the sun, as it evaporates water, the air cools down, and you can blow that through a pad and fan system over the greenhouse. Historically, you've only been able to do that with fresh water, but we actually use 100% seawater in that system. So it can be from a ground aquifer, salty aquifer, so from groundwater, or directly from the sea. And that does all the cooling. The actually big benefit of that is it works in humid and non-humid locations, whereas the freshwater really only works in non-humid. Now within the irrigation,
No, continue, please.
So generally when you hear these stats about we're saving fresh water in greenhouses, they're only talking about the saving you get by using hydroponics versus soil. And they're not counting the saving that you're using, they're not counting the water usage you actually need to cool the greenhouse down. And cooling the greenhouse is sort of 85% of the water usage generally. So we already use hydroponics, so we get the savings there. But we're able to substitute some of that fresh water, which can be from desalination or can be from mains, depending where it is, with salt water, which gives us a saving, and then all the kind of benefits. Where we'll also see massive savings really is where we can use these salt-tolerant crops in open field in the future as well.
And would you receive the 10% dilution required to grow the tomato, because there is a certain percentage of salt that should be in the water?
Yeah, so Mark Tester, and when I met him, I was told he was the world leading expert on saltwater tolerant crops, and I Googled him and checked, and he is. He's in the top 1% of scientists globally for citations. He spent his life researching this, cool stuff like collecting seeds from Botswana and salt fields and whatever, and grafting tomatoes, all non-GMO, by the way. And we were able to replace the fresh water with salt actually up to quite high degrees, so much higher than 10%, and still get the yields that we expect. And the amazing thing about growing plants in saltwater is, if you imagine the tomatoes are kind of like the children, and the plants are like the parents. And they do everything they can to protect their babies. So they get in the saltwater and they get a bit stressed, and they pump a bit more sugar and a bit more nutrients to make the skin a bit crunchier into the fruit. So they actually taste better and they're better for you. Now,
Absolutely.
different crops, different levels of salt, but tomatoes are really far ahead in terms of their salt tolerance.
Okay.
Hi, Simon.
Hello.
Thank you very much for your presentation and providing us with your insights into your project and your innovation. I had a question in regards to your target market. If we look at the UAE, we're predominantly focused on small-scale farms. We have approximately 25,000 farms. Out of 25,000 farms, approximately 1,500 actually producing crops that are needed in the UAE. You're tackling a very important challenge, which is food security and ensuring that we have long-term viability. However, the question I have is about your target audience, and who are you targeting from a consumer perspective when it comes to building of greenhouses? The reason being is that generally small-scale farmers who are locals or nationals generate $30,000 to $40,000 a year. So, is there enough savings, and what is the cost, kind of the costing model that you've developed? Thanks.
Yeah, hey, that's a fantastic question. That's the sort of big picture question of how do we really make a dent in food security with new technology. Ultimately, with these greenhouses, as I mentioned, a 10-hectare greenhouse, which is I'm British, so I'm not good with hectares, but that's about 15 soccer pitches, just to give you an idea of how big that is. That produces about 3,500 tons of tomatoes a day. A year, so 10 tons a day. Whereas I think it's less than 2% of just Jeddah's consumption. So there's a huge amount of space to grow before we really tackle any sort of big impact on reducing imports. Well, where we are with Red Sea Farms is we're moving from our research scale greenhouse, or greenhouses, I should say, so a few thousand square meters. And we've now signed these agreements to build 100,000 square meters in Saudi and the UAE. And that's going to really prove the technology at that scale. Where we see it really going is a number of mega scale projects where actually we use this infrastructure to build conditions which are truly sort of sustainable. They're using salt water and the sun, and then different farmers can kind of become tenants within that infrastructure. And actually, we know there needs to be education and there needs to be training across the region for that. But we also need that infrastructure to allow people to do this in a sustainable way. It's not sustainable to keep subsidizing fresh water, and it's not sustainable to keep subsidizing power. This gives us a chance to do that, but we have to really think big in terms of the infrastructure to allow us to do that.
Thanks, Simon. That's clear. Final question I had from my side, then I'll pass it over to my colleague. When it comes to potential negative impact of this technology that you're introducing, one issue that we have, especially in the UAE, is poor soil quality and low soil quality. Does this technology, with introduction of salinity into the environment, have you seen any negative impacts of that on soil quality?
Okay, so again, great question. We don't grow in soil, we're growing in hydroponics. We use a deep water culture, so a kind of channel of water that the plant roots sit in. So there's no sort of discharge onto soil that causes damage. And actually with Professor Tester's research, we're actually looking at how we take the seedlings from the greenhouses and plant them in open field, in that already salt damaged soil. And if you think about the Nile Delta being the biggest salt damaged area of soil, like globally, and there's something staggering. I think they plant 3 billion tomato plants a year, but they have a massive reduction in yield quality because of the salt damage. This is actually a solution for open field technology. Now, that's not to say that, you know, environmental systems are very finely balanced ecological systems. It's not to say there won't ever be any problems with different pests or whatever within the system, but we're fortunate that salt water, when you evaporate it, actually purifies the air. So you actually have a kind of air purification and disease reduction benefit from that as well.
Thank you, Simon.
Fantastic. Thank you. If there are no more questions from our fellow group, I can move on to some audience questions that have come in. Okay, awesome. So Simon, hi. First question from the audience is, can you tell us a little bit about who your competitors are, who your current competitors in the market are at the moment?
Yeah, so I guess if we think of our business as getting to farm gate and then the produce being sold, in terms of that produce side of things, we really want to be competing, I guess, with the imported produce. We want consumers to have the choice to buy as good quality, locally grown produce. So we want to be able to replace the imports there, but without the food miles, obviously. So that on the produce side. On the technology side, clearly there's lots of buzz about different types of agri-tech solutions at the moment. And so in a sense, we're competing and jostling for the funds to support those projects. I always say our primary inputs are using the sunlight and salt water to grow crops. We're not having to create anything artificial to do that. So I think we have a significant advantage, and this is a long-term solution to the food, or can make a real impact on food security.
Awesome. Thank you, Simon, for that comprehensive answer. I think we don't have any more questions at the moment from the audience, so I'm going to say thank you very much for joining us today, and for pitching and answering questions from our fellows and from our audience. We really, really appreciate it. Thank you, Simon.
Great. Thanks for the opportunity.
No worries. Thank you. And next up, we have Joginder from Pulse Active Stations. Hi, Joginder. If you'd like to unmute yourself and turn your camera on.
Hi.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you.
Awesome, awesome. We're ready to hear you pitch. If you'd like to share your screen.
Can you see this?
Yeah, if you could just make it full screen, please. In slide view.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot. Fire away. Your sound is a little bit distorted. It might be your headphones.
Yeah, now?
No, it's really quite distorted. Maybe I'm
Okay, I'm starting again. Yeah. Okay.
That's better. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, so I'm Joginder. I'm founder and CEO of the Pulse Active Stations Network. That's behind me. We are India's largest smart health kiosk network, and we are excited to be presenting today at Angel Rising 2020. The story of Pulse Active Stations Network begins with my personal journey. Before my 35th birthday, I went for a medical checkup, and I came to know that I was pre-diabetic and pre-hypertensive. That was a wake-up call for me, and fortunately, I was able to take care of myself. But I then came to know that other Indians are not so fortunate. In fact, 1 out of 4 Indians, that's over 325 million Indians, are at risk of dying from NCDs before they reach the age of 70. This means over 6 million Indians die every year due to preventable causes. That is, lifestyle diseases such as diabetes, hypertension, heart and lung conditions, which could have been prevented or at least mitigated if screening was done in time. This is why I came up with the Pulse Active Stations Network. The Pulse Active Station Network is a nationwide connected network of smart health kiosks known as the Pulse Active Stations. Each Pulse Active Station can measure various body measurements at affordable rates and is placed in a public space with high footfall, thus increasing accessibility to basic health screening. Since we started 2 years ago, we have grown from 30 locations to 150 locations across 106 cities. Along the way, we have acquired various institutional partners and 450,000 paid users. In fact, we were adding 1,000 new users every day just before the lockdown. Also, I'm happy to inform that we are part of Y Combinator's Winter 2019 batch and are also supported by the Mistletoe and ASICS groups. One of the unique elements of our Pulse Active Station customer experience is the operator. We train and employ young boys and girls to be the kiosk operator. That is the face of the company. They explain about the kiosk and the various tests to the users, as well as upsell or partner solutions. The user steps on the kiosk and has to give an informed data consent. Essentially, we don't share the user's data directly with any of our partners. We can only contact the user. And of course, we use the anonymous data for public health research purposes. After the user completes the data consent, they give a disclaimer for pre-existing conditions such as heart disease. They then enter their contact details and undergo selected tests, after which they receive the report, which is explained to them by the operator. The user is also then onboarded onto our digital platform by receiving an SMS to see the online report and to download our app. After the test, we provide an A4 size color printed report indicating the various parameters of the user and where they should be. Our AI engine also suggests to them ways to improve their parameters and lead a healthy lifestyle. We have different kinds of tests for which we charge rupees 50 to rupees 150 basing on the kind of test. These tests include basic tests such as body composition analysis, vital parameters, and our lung function test is very popular in a polluted area like Delhi. These affordable tests enable us to take care of our basic operational costs like our operator salary, site rentals, and consumables. After that, we earn more revenue from our partner programs, hospital referrals, and insurance sales. Of course, there is the big data, which we use for public health research purposes. And incidentally, we have also started micro-entrepreneurship. Apart from owning and operating our own kiosks, we gave it out for franchising. Our partners include very reputed organizations in various fields, such as HDFC Insurance, Decathlon Sports Equipment, Digit Insurance, and so on. Our team is basically me, that is Joginder. I'm an inventor and a full stack coder with over 16 years of experience as an IoT entrepreneur, having serviced large government and private enterprises. My colleague is Dr. Vikram Agarwal, who is a doctor from All India Institute of Medical Sciences and an MBA in healthcare marketing from Indian School of Business, both premium institutions in India. Before joining Pulse, he was business head for famous hospitals, including the Universal Hospital in the UAE. Generally, we keep a low profile as we have grown, but we have received some media mention, including appreciation from the Honorable President of India. Once again, we are Pulse Active Stations Network. We are at 150 locations with 450,000 paid users. Our target is to reach 10,000 locations and 100 million users, creating 10,000 jobs and 8,000 micro entrepreneurs. We are looking for strategic support to expand to the MENA region, collaboration with medical technology providers, and scientific institutions. I have a small 1-minute video. May I share that?
Sure.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
India is a vast country with an ever-growing population, and not everyone has access to basic health screening facilities. But everyone in India, everyone takes the train. That's why we came up with the Pulse Active Station Kiosk. This is a smart health kiosk which we place in train stations and other public places. And at very affordable rates, starting at rupees 50, we make basic health screening accessible to all. Each Pulse Active Station is manned by our trained operator who explains about the different types of tests and the final report. And together, all our IoT-enabled Pulse Active stations make up the Pulse Active Station Network. And in association with our partners, we are becoming the single point of contact for all healthcare services. One team, 1.3 billion users. That's Pulse Active Stations Network. India is a vast country with an ever-growing population, and not everyone has access.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Joginder, for that great pitch and an insight into the amazing work that you're doing with Pulse Active Stations. I'd like to invite our fellows forward. If they have any questions for Joginder, please unmute your mic and turn your camera on.
Happy to go first again.
Thanks, Dominic.
Thank you so much. This is inspirational, to be honest, and absolutely a great work that you're doing, and especially in India, knowing the situation, especially in rural areas. My question go beyond the testing, because what happens if these patients actually need support, knowing that probably they won't have access to healthcare? So they do their tests, they know that probably they are diabetes or they have any other kind of diseases. Would you support as well that part through the network of insurance that you have or the hospital?
Yeah, so thank you. So actually, so what we have actually started is, in fact, with HDFC Insurance and Digit Insurance, we have started pocket insurance schemes. That means for a very small premium, only 20 rupees, which we include in our test cost, people get health coverage. And that's a very new thing in India, in fact, because many people don't have health coverage. So that is how we are bringing everybody into the insurance network. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. And so you generate your money actually by people would pay for their test when they do it, like something really small,
yes,
right?
Yes, everybody pays for it. Yes. Yeah. That's what everybody
How much
pays
is
for
that cost?
Yeah.
How much do they pay?
So that starts at 50 rupees. It starts at 50 rupees and goes up to 150 rupees. On average, you can take it as $1, as $1 US on average. Yeah.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Dominique. Sultan, if you'd like to ask your question.
Yeah, you mentioned that you are looking for strategic support to expand to the MENA region. So did you put in your strategy which are the countries that you want to go first with, and like prioritize some countries for that?
Yeah, so actually, so we do receive a lot of inquiries from Africa, but I've always wanted to start off with the UAE. So the reason is, so basically my career started off with the UAE. That's where I started. And the second thing is that when we did the Start AD program, so we had very good discussions with ADNOC. So we had discussed about placing our kiosks in all the 343, if I'm not wrong, filling stations across the country, and also with the Abu Dhabi airport. So those were good, but that time we were not ready. We had just started. So now that we are ready, we want to come back to the UAE. And in fact, we are under consideration for a program called Dubai Future Accelerators. So next week, we hope to get the result, and then we should start. So one of the interesting things which I would like to show you is that during the lockdown, we have also been busy. Can I share my screen? Yeah, sorry. Yeah. I'm just sharing my screen. So during the lockdown, we have also been busy with different tie-ups. So one of the scientific institutions we have tied up with is the Tata Memorial Hospital. And they have come up with a test using a drop of saliva, just one drop of saliva. We can do screening for COVID, cancer, and other diseases. So this is also something which I want to bring to the Middle East, because basically in a convenient place, within 1 to 3 minutes, you should get a screening and know about yourself.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Joginder. And it's a very, very interesting innovation and product that you've developed, and giving access to everyone, to a large majority of the population for easy information and healthcare is a big task, and we commend you for what you're doing. Joginder, I have a quick question in regards to liabilities. A lot of times, some of the challenges that you have is certain liabilities that are on you if there's a potential misdiagnosis or information that is inaccurate. How have you ensured that your system protects from that risk of liabilities, and how accurate has your kiosks been with the different tests available?
Yeah, thank you. That's a very good question. So actually, so one of the things is that, in fact, this will also answer the question which has come in the audience question, that since health coverage is mandatory, so this will answer both the questions. So the first thing is that we exist outside of the hospital network. So that is a very important aspect to what we do. And the second thing is that our tests, we do not, even though we are using all medical grade certified equipment such as Omron, which is one of the world's largest supplier of medical equipment, we don't say that this is a diagnostic test. In fact, we have disclaimers, and people have to also accept on the data consent while doing the test, that we say that this is a screening test. And the whole concept is because in a public space, your results are going to be different from those in a clinical setting. Like your BP will be maybe different, or even your blood sugar will be different. So we are accurate, but we don't say we are diagnostics. We say we are a screening system. And the liability is protected by the data consent and the disclaimers. And I mean, those are all the legal aspects we have worked out.
Thank you. I have one final question, which also ties into my colleague Dominic's question, is following the results that they receive. One aspect that you talked about is nutrition and how to keep an active lifestyle. Have you thought from a growth perspective, looking into that area and monetizing that part in regards to providing nutrition plans and exercise programs? Or are you thinking of potentially outsourcing that or partnering with another company?
So I'll just share one more thing. So one thing is that we have already tied up with various partners. In fact, for nutrition and exercise, we have tied up with Dr. Shikha Sharma. She's one of India's leading nutritionists. And apart from that, what I would like to show you is our customer journey, actually. So if you look here, so the kiosk is just the physical touch point. So it's just a way to bring the person into our ecosystem. And once they are into our ecosystem, then we have a number of steps by which we start interacting more with the customer, giving more solutions, giving more partner programs. And ultimately, we want to build an intelligent system where, because of the data we have, we can even give them personalized medicine, personalized food, personalized nutrition, and so on. In fact, one interesting thing I would like to point out also is that what we found is 40% of our user group is in the working age population. These are people just entering the working age. So if we make health a habit, because I also realized about my health only when I reached 35. Before that, I never bothered about it. So if you make health a habit for people, young people, then it's a benefit to the nation as they keep getting older. Yeah.
Thank you, Joginder.
Thank you. Yeah.
Fantastic.
I still have one question. I'm really sorry, Jeremy. Do we still have time? Because I'd like again to bring the fact that probably what you're offering is for middle-income people, because this probably won't sort out the problem of really the poor community in India, as example, correct? So who is your target? Who would be your customer? How would you define them?
That's also a good question. So actually we started off, if you look at my screen again, we started off with urban Indians. So that was our original market actually. As a startup to have a market, we started off with urban Indians. But along the way, we have started expanding into rural areas also. So in fact, right now we are working with the Novartis Foundation, which is one of India's largest foundations by the Novartis group, to expand into rural areas. So in different modes, we have also started with rural areas actually. Yeah.
So part of your business model, you're offering as well your services to the people who cannot afford it effectively.
Yes, in fact, what we do is—
And do you measure this? Would you measure this as part of your metrics? Would you put it as part of your own reporting? Because you would have to offer it at a lower price. I know that it is $1, but knowing the condition that we have, probably you won't face it in the Emirates because like people are much wealthier, but probably back home in India, it's different scenario. So that's why I'm a little trying to understand your target audience specifically, so I understand how your business model operates.
Yeah, so actually the way we can look at it is that supposing we take the lowest fee, 50 rupees, right? So in an urban area, like in a city, right, 50 rupees is somebody, they can do it, on a weekly basis, they can do our test. That's why we keep it in a subway station and, a bus station and so on. But when the same 50 rupees is there in a rural area or in a poorer area, they can do it maybe once a month or once, even if they do it once every 6 months, that is good for us. And how we are also covering that is, for example, through CSR activities such as, with the Novartis Foundation, as I just mentioned to you. So these are also ways we are covering that. Yeah. So we are expanding to all the places. Yeah.
Okay, I think you should report on this as well as part of whatever you report on, so people can kind of understand how you're giving access as well to the people.
Yes, and also may I show you a product roadmap? Yeah, so we are just we go on adding and expanding also the kiosk. Yeah. So even mental health is part of the system. So even in the UAE, right? So we intend that whenever we start, we should be able to offer mental health solutions also at a touch point, physical touch point.
If I give you my saliva, would you understand if I'm okay or not mentally?
No, not the saliva is not mentally. So there's a Singapore company.
No, I'm just kidding.
For
okay,
the
fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dominique. Thank you, Jassim, and thank you, Dr. Sultan, for the questions. We have a couple more audience questions that you haven't addressed yet, Joginder. So if you're pleased, I'd like to ask them to you and have you address the audience directly. So the latest one that came in, just as you were talking about your product roadmap, sort of in line with that, someone's asked, what are the biggest challenges for you in terms of expansion? And maybe you can talk about expansion, in your local market in India, and then expansion outside of India. What challenges have you faced with both respects?
Yeah. Thank you. So the first question, I think I already answered. Even though health coverage is mandatory as per labor law, so we are outside of the hospital network. That is a distinction we always want to maintain. And the second thing is that the kiosk is just a physical touch point. The basic aim is to bring that user into our complete ecosystem of solutions and products. So there is a place for this, and there's a place also for the health coverage. Then the second question is the device certified by an agency in India? So we have our CE certifications in place, and we have our medical ISO certificates. And I'll just show that also. And next year we'll be applying for the FDA approvals also. But one thing I would like to bring to your notice is that so this is our patents and certifications. And right now we are FDA exempt. But one thing I would like to bring to your notice is that some of the equipment we use is anyway already medical certified, like Omron equipment. So those are anyway medically certified equipment. Then the third question is expansion challenges. Yeah. So the first expansion challenge we faced was, expanding at a rapid scale and taking up sites, real estate acquisition. So for that, what I had done was I had taken, so one of my other team members, he was director of Cushman & Wakefield, which is, one of the world's largest real estate companies. So because of his experience, we were able to quickly expand into different locations. So that is a similar strategy I will probably follow in any country where we take people who are already experienced in real estate acquisition. And the second challenge would be the manufacturing process. So originally I had gone to China because I thought that I will, instead of reinventing the wheel, I will get the kiosk from there. But the good thing is that because they had Chinese New Year and they were not able to, service us, I started developing on my own. It took about a year, for the testing, validation, and every process to be done. And then we came up with this kiosk on our own. So we manufacture it here. So the good thing is now, even though there's an embargo on Chinese goods in India, so we are completely independent of that supply chain. So that is a challenge which we have addressed. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for elaborating on those interesting challenges that you're facing to bring your product to a wider market. We don't have any more questions from the audience at the moment. So thank you so much, Joginder, for taking the time to be with us this evening and presenting your solution. Very best of luck. And thank you once again.
Sure. Yeah, hope to see you in the UAE. Thank you. Yeah, bye.
Thank you. Likewise.
Yeah. Thanks to the audience also. Thank you so much. Thanks,
Joginder. So on to the final pitch of the evening. We are joined by Sabrina and Mitchell of Idama, who will be taking us through their solutions shortly. Fire away, Sabrina. If I could just ask you to turn your camera on.
Yes, sorry, I'm just facing a little technical issue, but just give me 1 minute.
Sure, no problem.
I think I'm almost there.
Okay, sure.
Okay, my camera is on.
I can see you.
Okay, can you confirm you can see the slides and they're changing?
Yes, we can see them and they're changing. Thank you, Sabrina.
Okay, great. So good evening, everybody. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Edam Organic Solutions. My name is Sabrina. And Edam Organic Solutions is a Saudi-based startup with headquarters in King Abdullah University for Science and Technology, KAUST. At Edam, we deliver cutting-edge organic waste recycling solutions that are specifically targeted to desert environments. Edam is tackling three major challenges for the region. The first is waste disposal. Did you know that most of the waste we produce is organic, meaning our food waste from our homes, restaurants, food industries, and green waste from landscaping and agricultural activities. So all of this waste is actually piling up in landfills where it represents a threat for public health and the environment. The second big challenge is desert agriculture. Because of the low fertility and water holding capacity of local sandy soils, desert agriculture is extremely inefficient. And to improve soils, farmers, landscapers, and even home gardeners need products that are currently imported from abroad. Hence the supply chain issue. Soil improver products supply is usually unreliable and costly. At Edam, we transform organic waste into a resource for desert agriculture. Our mission is to create a local circular economy that recycles discarded food waste and turns it into soil improver products. These products will then empower farmers to grow more food using less water and close the loop in this vital living system. Our recycling facilities integrate the most advanced composting technologies with our proprietary scientific know-how that are adapted and targeted to local needs such as weather conditions and date palm waste. Our soil improver products are designed by our plant science experts in order to improve the fertility and water holding capacity of local soils, making desert agriculture more efficient. Recycling all the MENA organic waste into Edam soil improver products will bring immense social and environmental benefits. These benefits translate into $10 billion every year in cost savings. And this is thanks to reduced pollution, improved food security, addressed water scarcity, and improved quality of life for citizens and visitors. The creation of a local circular economy will not just save costs, but also create value worth $3 billion every year, driving economic growth and creating many new jobs opportunities. At Edam, we're an international team of professionals with a common passion for sustainability. Beside myself, with a PhD in data science and several years of working experience in sustainability, we have Dr. Mitchell Morton, our CTO, plant scientist and expert in desert agriculture. Engineer Saud, our Director of Business Relations with an extensive regional network, and Rowan, our COO, serial entrepreneur with several years of experience in business and finance. Sorry. Since we started our journey in 2017, we already secured $1 million in funding. And these are $220,000 in grants and prizes and $780,000 from the KAUST Innovation Fund in the form of a convertible loan. Today, we're asking for $1.5 million investment in order to apply our fast growth strategy. This will allow us to make the best use of our first mover advantage and answer to the needs of the rapidly developing recycling markets in the region. In the slide, you can see, in the graph in the slide, you can see the recycling capacity in blue and our operating revenue in green. In 2020, we have been operating our pilot facility and established partnership with key stakeholders, such as the Saudi Investment Recycling Company. This has brought us revenues from product sales and consulting for about $50,000. This year, we also secured our first commercial scale project for a composting facility recycling all the organic waste of the KAUST community. This project is worth about $1.6 million in CapEx. And this facility will become operational in 2021, and we're now about to sign an operating contract for more than 10 years. By 2022, we expect 2 additional composting facilities to become operational, And we're already in advanced negotiation with important clients such as the Daraya Gate Development Authority and NEOM. And the goal of this additional funding is to gain enough resources to secure multiple projects across the whole MENA region, expanding our production capacity and significantly increasing our regional impact and our operating revenues. Thanks everyone, and I look forward to welcome you in the circular economy and invite any questions from the committee and the audience.
Thank you, Sabrina. I'd like to invite our fellows to ask some questions if they have any. I've got a sneaky suspicion that Dominique would like to go first, but I'm not sure.
I was waiting to see if someone else would like to go first this time, but happy to. Sabrina, thank you. We know that food waste is one of the biggest challenges, specifically in the GCC market. I'd like to understand what or how your business model works. So where do you get your organic waste from?
Okay, so first of all, our business model works, we have basically two sources of revenue. One from the product sales, which at the moment represents our main source of revenue, and also our recycling fees. So we work with municipalities, community managers that are particularly keen on the sustainability cause and are willing to pay a premium for their waste to be recycled. This is in Saudi Arabia, at least, where regulations are just coming into place. So the market is still undeveloped. We are also working directly with, as I mentioned before, the Saudi Investment Recycling Company, and we know that regulations are coming into place. So this represents a huge growth opportunity for us, because as soon as regulations are into place, we will be able to charge these gate fees on a national level, at least for Saudi Arabia. But for now, our main source of revenue is coming from the product sales, because we are making products that are specifically targeted to address the needs of the region, like compost and other soil improvers.
Yeah, but to get the compost done, you said that you use the organic waste.
Yes.
Correct? Okay, so this organic waste, you get it from someone specific, and there is a certain as well, do you get everything out of this organic waste? So like, let's say you have a deal with a big hotel and they give you all their organic waste. This is the way, for example, that you get your raw material, because this is your raw material, correct?
Correct. So there are different models that can be applied in a case-by-case situation. But for example, for our first facility, our first commercial facility, we're operating in a university compound where all the waste is segregated at source, is delivered and is collected and delivered by a third-party company to our facility directly. Okay. We take all of the organic waste. So we take the food waste, we take the horticultural waste as well. Like there is a lot of landscaping activity. In a municipality, we won't target yet residentials because it's still early in the region to target residentials, but we're targeting—
There is no segregation anyway.
Sorry?
There's no segregation as well. It is not part like recycling here.
Sorry, I think there is a little bit of delay. Yes, so just to clarify.
Issue with my connection?
I think it's good. There is just a little bit of delay, so I'm hearing your feedback a bit later. But just to clarify, outside, like in other projects, for example, we're talking to PepsiCo, we're talking to food processing companies that are willing to deliver the waste to our facility. We're also talking to other municipalities that are willing to organize the collection. We don't do collection. We generally require the waste to arrive to our facility, which is a standard model for this kind of facility around the world.
So I think as well, one of your main target client could be hospitality once it's back to normal post-COVID, hopefully. This could be one of the biggest at the moment part of your clients.
Yes, we have clients like big hotels, hospitals.
And as you mentioned, regulation is coming, taxonomy.
So
Perfect.
we're targeting big businesses, and we're also targeting big organizations like compounds, municipalities. We're collaborating with the administrator of industrial cities where we have clusters of food industries. And that is how we get all the food waste. The food waste is just part of the waste we need. So we need a balanced mix in order to make our products, because there is a process behind defining the recipe with the right chemical and biological characteristics. So what we do is normally we have more or less like half food waste and landscaping waste, which we get from agricultural activities as well.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dominique. I'd like to invite Jasim. I think you might have a question. I've just seen your camera go on.
Yes, thanks, Jeremy. And thank you, Sabrina. So I have a question in regards to your expansion. You mentioned that you are seeking to expand within the MENA region, and currently your operations are in Saudi. When you plan on expanding outside of Saudi, what specific market are you looking into, and why? What's the reason behind it? And how are you looking at it?
I think it's important to highlight that we are really focused on delivering products that can improve desert agriculture. So for sandy soils, so we're looking at the MENA region as our main expansion focus. We have already a lot of interest coming from the UAE, actually. So that will probably be the next step for us, just because we are already receiving inquiries. But the whole market is actually developing at the moment in the Middle East, and we think that we have really good opportunities across the region.
But Sabrina, let me elaborate a little bit more. As you have obviously limited resources as you expand, do you look, are you more opportunistic, meaning, a government will approach you and talk to you, or do you look at it from the regulation side, the amount of organic waste in a country? Do you assess these areas as you are looking at your expansion strategy?
To be honest with you, because the market is very undeveloped in the region, we have endless opportunities at the moment in terms of market size. So yes, we are adopting a more opportunistic approach. So when we see there is more interest, we're going for more specific projects where we know our partners are interested in developing a certain composting facility in a certain area. So right now that has been our approach, and we are partnering with more organizations that are basically helping us finding more projects, so additional facilities across. For the moment, we're mainly developing facilities across Saudi Arabia, but we're also looking in the UAE and other partners that are pushing us to develop facilities in those areas.
Thanks, Sabrina. One final question I have is, you mentioned a lot throughout your presentation desert environments and how you're managing it within our regional climate. When it comes to your solution, organic waste recycling, how is it different from other regions due to our desert environment? So what have you done that's different due to our local climate and it being a desert environment?
Two main different differences from the processing perspective are that we have really high temperatures in this region, or at least for some months of the year. So the weather can be really dry as well. So the air can be really dry. And the composting process is a biological process that works when certain parameters are within certain ranges, like temperature is one of them and moisture is another one. And we had to adjust our processing in order to make sure that we could keep the right temperature and moisture for the composting process to carry out optimally. We also design our facility to minimize water and energy uses. So for example, in this case, we made special system that allow us to mist air into our composting piles. So the air is not as hot and it doesn't dry out the pile, but it keeps the moisture in, and we don't need additional cooling, for example, and we reuse all the water. So that's one addition. The other adjustment that we made to our processing is using date palm waste. So we had to develop processes specifically to be able to include this challenging feedstock in our mechanisms and methods. And this is from the processing side, but also from the product side. We did a lot of work to develop products that are resistant in arid weather conditions in the soils, so that generally have better structure, like and are higher in carbon, for example. So the organic matter can stay in the soil longer, and our compost can help regulating pH and salinity. So all of these adjustments are made in order to make sure that we answer to the needs of desert agriculture. I hope that answers to your question.
Yes, thank you, Sabrina, and thank you to the entire Dama team.
Thank you.
I think we had one question from Dr. Sultan. Would you like to?
Yes, thank you, Sabrina, for this very insightful presentation and solution. UAE, I know that they are doing a lot in this dimension, and before that also they created a food bank, which is also to save food, and now you are continuing that journey, I see. My question is, did you do in your long-term vision anything to build the culture among the people that to segregate or to separate, the food waste, and like, did you deal with any universities or your partners or schools in order to build the culture for the future in that long?
Yes, yeah, thanks for mentioning the food. Yeah, the reutilizing food, actually, that is important to understand that we always advocate for reusing food that is still edible. So the food waste we deal with, we'd like to deal with only scraps and leftovers and not food that it could have been eaten. And regarding the collaboration with entities for educational campaigns, yes, we are very active on the matter, actually. In KAUST, for example, KAUST is our testing ground. So here we have, we're working with community representatives and various members of the organization in order to develop educational campaign for waste separation. So the strategy that we adopt in general when we build additional projects is always to target first waste that is already easily segregated. So we target first restaurants, food processing industries, as I mentioned before, and landscaping. And then we build in educational programs and slowly start integrating all the waste that is thrown away in the residential areas as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Sultan. So that leads us, if there are no more questions from our fellows, onto our audience questions. We are almost running out of time, so I'm just going to try and pose some of the most common ones for you, Sabrina and Mitchell. So one that I've seen this come up more than once is on more the technical process around your solution and what you actually do in terms of sorting. So if waste is delivered to you in a mixed format, does this cause quite a big challenge, and what do you actually do about that?
Yes, we do have also sorting at our facility. We'd like to keep that at minimal because of course, if the waste is too contaminated, then we also cannot process it. So we have thresholds in terms of contamination volumes and number of pieces and weight. But there is some sorting done at the facility as well to make sure that if there is a little bit of contamination, then the waste won't just like go to landfill. But we do a lot of work, as I mentioned before, with communities and with the waste providers in order to educate whoever is separating at source to do most of the job, because this is the way we can be efficient. It's much more efficient for someone to segregate at source than for someone to segregate once the waste is delivered to the facility all mixed. And this is also how standard composting facilities operate.
Awesome. Thank you, Sabrina. Another question that someone posed was around the process of gaining the waste, similar to what Dominique was asking. So maybe if you can clarify for our wider audience on this point. They want to know, if people pay you to take the waste, or do you pay for the waste, or is this on a case-by-case basis? How does this part of your business work?
Okay, so normally people will actually pay for recycling. This cost in a developed market, it will be a tax from a municipality, and then the municipality will bear the cost per ton of waste delivered to a composting facility. Our model in the Middle East is slightly different at the moment because the market is still developing. So we are charging a gate fee, but it's compared to the fee that that landfills charge. So it's very minimal at the moment, but still, waste is normally a cost, and it is actually an additional part to our revenue. Comes with like an additional revenue stream.
Excellent, thank you. And I think that the final area that would be interesting for our audience to hear about is around the regulatory landscape and any financial support that governments might want to put forward, because it is obviously quite a capex heavy operation. Can you expand a little bit more about how you're working with governments, or how you plan to work with governments to take this venture forward?
Yes, we're working closely with several authorities and government entities. And actually, in Saudi Arabia, there are very specific targets for recycling, which include in composting 35% of the waste by 2035. These government entities are actually willing to invest the finance, the capex for the facility, and that is also really helpful for our projects because, as you mentioned, these are very high capex intensive projects. So that's where we're finding support. The government entities are willing to provide finance and also land for the facility and facilitation with the waste input. Not just the government entities, but also other authorities and compounds that are more innovative, like clients, for example, that we're looking at in Saudi Arabia are Aramco or NEOM, so progressive communities.
Fantastic, thank you. Well, I'm very interested. And you guys have definitely got your work cut out for you, but I can definitely see a bright future ahead for Adama. Thank you very much for taking the time to join us today, Sabrina and Mitchell. It's been great to have you. Thank you to the rest of our ventures who joined us. Thank you also to our fellows who asked some fantastic, stimulating questions to our panel of startups this evening. I'd like to say, a huge thank you for joining us and really appreciate it. Thank you also to the audience for posing some fantastic questions. So Sabrina, if I could ask you to turn your camera off now, I'm going to move on to our closing remarks. If I just, if you could unshare your screen, please, Sabrina. Thank you very much. Thank you. So as we draw a close to Angel Rising 2020, it's been a fantastic event and a really engaging and stimulating time to welcome you all to this virtual arena and share in our overarching mission of catalyzing tech for good. I'd like to also say another huge thank you from us at Start AD and VentureSouk to our partners and sponsors in this, Sharar and KAUST. So thank you very much for supporting us in this initiative. Now to hear a message from Dr. Ramesh Jagannathan, the Vice Provost for Innovation at New York University, Abu Dhabi, and the Managing Director of Start AD to bring a close to Angel Rising 2020.
It's a pleasure for me to be addressing you on this very important occasion, Angel Rising. Thank you and my sincere gratitude to you who are all here today. We typically welcome attendees through a curated UAE experience and a rich opportunity to network. However, in these virtual times, we are thrilled to see how this simulated virtual experience is just as enriching and far-reaching. Global problems require global solutions, the same way that global opportunities attract global funding. Conscious investing is a growing force across the world. As you all know, it's currently estimated at USD 715 billion. Closer to home, a recent global study found 93% of the UAE investors believe that they are not compromising on investment performance by choosing a sustainable investment, in contrast to a global average of only 82%. Moreover, 66% of the UAE investors expect sustainable investments to outperform the traditional investments, compared to 50% of investors surveyed globally. Also, 75% expected to become more the norm in a decade, well above the global average of 58%. These are exciting times. The Angel Rising has demonstrated there is a great potential for emerging technologies that can add real value to the society, while also providing strong returns on investment. I would like to thank our speakers and startups who joined us from all over the world. You have been at the forefront of conscious tech. We have been inspired and learned actionable insights from your experiences that can help us chart our own conscious investment strategy. This year, Angel Rising also marks another important milestone, the completion of the first ever Pan-Regional Conscious Investor Fellowship. It shines a light on the significance and potential of conscious investment, especially among the next generation of mission-driven investors from the GCC. We work with 30 fellows from diverse backgrounds, from family businesses to corporate venture capital to government funds. I'm also very proud to see that over 50% of the investors in the fellowship are female. To put this into context, globally, 22% of angel investors worldwide are female. I would like to congratulate each one of our fellows who have taken the plunge and are already actioning the conscious investment path. I can hardly wait to see you set the tone for conscious investments in our region. Our partners, VentureSouk, KAUST, Sharar, and Hub71, thank you. A big thanks to you. We could not have done this without you. I would like to thank NYUAD and Tamkeen for all We are looking forward to having you inspire the next generation of mission-driven investors from the GCC. Now it's your time to act. Spread the message. Connect us to startups disrupting the space, investors fueling their growth, and entities that would like to make a difference. We look forward to continuing to work with you.